Hello everybody, my name is Ananya Kantrat. So today I'm here with another subject, database management systems. So the topic is about the entity types, entity sets, attributes and keys. So let's look into these slides. So the ER model describes data as entities, relationships, and attributes. So entities and attributes are nothing but it's a thing or an object in the real world with an independent existence, which is nothing but termed as an entity. Or it may be an object with a physical existence, for example, a particular person, a car, an employee, or an object with a conception existence, for instance, a company, a job, or a university course. So each entity has attributes. So that's nothing but a particular property that describes. For example, an employee entity, it may be described by the employee's name, age, address, salary, etc. So here we can look into an example, E1 and C1. Here the name is given as John Smith, address is so and so, age is 55, and the phone number is given as follows, which is nothing but which comprises of an entity and an attribute here. So the figure here shows two entities. It's nothing but and the values of their attributes. The employee entity E1, it has four attributes, namely name, address, age, and phone. And their values are John Smith, the address, location is in Texas, and so on, respectively. And the company entity C1, it's nothing but again employee details, which has three attributes, which is nothing but name, headquarters, the president, the values, and so and so. So the types of attributes occur in the ER model, which is represented above here. So simple versus composite single valued versus derived from nothing but they derive from the composite attributes and they are divided into smaller subparts. Say, for example, address attribute of the employee entity, it can be subdivided into street address, city, state, and zip code. Similarly, it has three values, so and so is mentioned in the slide here, and attributes that are not divisible, which are not completely divisible, they are called as simpler atomic attributes. For example, attribute age, which cannot be divided further, which comes under the simple attribute. So here we can see, which is representing the hierarchy of composite attributes, the address, which includes the street address, city, state, and zip code, whereas the street address further includes the number, street, apartment number, and so on. So what is single value attributes? It's nothing but the most attributes which have a single value for a particular entity. So for example, age is a single valued attribute of a person and a multi-valued entity is nothing but an entity having multiple values for that attribute. For example, color is nothing but example black, red, and so on. A person's degree, it might be BE, MTech, PhD, etc. So it's a multi-valid entity. We can have a number of degrees, so on. So what is the meaning of stored and derived attribute? So the two or more attribute values, they are related. For example, age and birth date, the attributes of a person which are related together. So the value of an age can be determined from the current date and the value of that person's date. So the age attribute is hence called a derived attribute. So the birth date attribute is also called as a stored attribute. So what do you mean by null values? Null values is nothing but in some cases the particular entity may not have an applicable value for an attribute. For example, the apartment number attribute for of an address implies that only to those addresses in the apartment buildings and not to the other types of residences, such as a single family or college degree attribute may imply only to the people with the college degree. So it varies. So here comes the topic of null values. Next, what I mean by complex attributes. Composite and multi-valued attributes can be nested arbitrarily. Arbitrary nesting by grouping components of a composite attribute between parentheses and separate components with commas and by displaying multi-valued attributes between braces. So such attributes are called as complex attributes. So for example, if a person can have more than one residence and each residence can have a single address and multiple phones, For example, an attribute with an address phone for a person, it's nothing but called as a complex attribute. So here is an example here which is showed with the help of the parentheses and the braces over here. Address phone, brackets, again braces, phone, which includes area code, phone number, again the closed braces and brackets, and then again we start with the address, it includes street address, and the street address includes the number, street, apartment number, city, state, zip code, etc. So next is nothing but entity types, entity sets, key values, and sets. So entity type defines a collection or a set of entities that have the same attributes. So each entity type in a database is described by its name and attributes. So here the figure shows two entity types, that is employee and company, and a list of some of the attributes for each is as follows. Here we can see the employee has a name, age, salary, and the company has a name, headquarters, and president. So the collection of all entities of a particular entity type in the database at any point of time is called an entity set or an entity collection. So entity set is usually referred, to using the same name as the entity type, whereas an entity type is represented by the ER diagrams as in a rectangular box. So the attribute names are enclosed in ovals and are attached to their entity type by straight lines. And composite attributes are attached to their component attributes by single lines, straight lines. And multivariate attributes are displayed in double ovals. Collection of entities of a particular entity type is grouped into an entity set, which is also called the extension of an entity type. So what are key attributes of an entity type? So the important constraint on entities of an entity type is nothing but the key or the uniqueness constraint on attributes. So an entity type usually has one or more attributes whose values are distinct for each individual entity in the entity set. Such an attribute is called a key attribute, and its values can be used to identify each entity uniquely. For example, the name attribute is a key of the company entity type because no two companies are allowed to have the same name for the person. Entity type, a typical key attribute, example SSN. Specifying that an attribute is a key of an entity type means that the preceding uniqueness property must hold for everything of that entity type. So hence, it is a constraint that prohibits any two entities from having the same value of the key attribute at the same time. And some entity types have more than one attribute also. So for example, here the vehicle ID and registration attributes of the entity type car is a key in its own right. So here we can see a car has the key attributes. So vehicle ID, registration attributes, which include state and number, again, the year, the color, the making, and the model of the car. So here, the second example here we can see is the registration is under the number and the state, the vehicle ID, the make, the model, and the year, including the color. So for example, you can see car one. So registration is ABC 123 Texas, and the vehicle number is given, and it's made in Ford Mustang, convertible 2004 model, red and black. So and so. Next. What are value sets, which is nothing but domains of attributes? So each simple attribute of an entity type is associated with a value set or a domain of values which specifies a set of values may be assigned to that attribute for individual entity. So if the range of the ages allowed for employees is between 16 and 70, we can specify the value set of the age attribute of the employee to be the set of the integer numbers between 16 and 70. So value sets are not typically displayed in the basic ER diagrams and are similar to the basic data types available in the most programming languages, such as integer, string, boolean, float, enumerated data type, subrange, and so on. Mathematically, an attribute A of an entity set E, whose value set is V, can be defined as a function from e to the power set. That's what p of v, so and so, as v is to a is to e to p of v, which is nothing but yet a value set. So we can refer to the value of an attribute A for an entity E as A of E. The previous definition covers both the single valued entities over here. A null value is represented by an empty set. For single value attributes, say A of E is restricted to being a singleton set for each entity E and no restriction on multi-valued attributes. Whereas for a composite attribute, the set V is the power set of the Cartesian product of P of V1, P of V2, so on up to P of Vn, where V1 and V2, so on up to Vn, are the value sets of the simple component attributes that form A is to V, which is equal to P of V1, P of V2, and so on up to P of Vn. So initial conceptual design of the company database is shown here in this model. We can see the department, which includes the name, number, manager, location, start date, and so on. Project includes the name, number, location, and controlling department. It can include any more entities if needed. And the employee details includes the work, which further includes the project and the hours, the salary, the supervisor, address, the SSN number, the department, the birth date, the name, which includes the first name, middle name, and the last name. And the dependent includes the birth date, the relationship, the employee, dependent name, so and so. So thank you for watching my video. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube videos and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you for watching.